Welcome to Sharkie's Gaming Controllers. I'm Sharkie, and in today's video I'll be taking a look at the NubyTech Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller for PlayStation 2. This is an awesome chainsaw shaped controller, especially designed for Resident Evil 4. So having a look at this packaging, first off you can see how awesome this looks. It comes in this plastic display stand which looks really posh. You can see the chainsaw through those display windows there, and also the end of it poking out of the end of the packaging here. It just looks really posh. So that's the side there, and the back of the packaging, and the front. And of course you can see all the blood splatter of the chainsaw bit here sticking out. Looks really cool. So taking a closer look at this packaging, on the front here it just says Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller, and it's got the Capcom logo. And of course you can see that it's a chainsaw there through those display windows, looking very cool. Down the bottom here, you've got a Capcom logo again. This is like in a gold plastic, and it kind of reflects in the light, looking really posh. On the top here, it just says Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller for PlayStation 2. And you get another look at the controller itself through that top display window. You can see the buttons and analog sticks. And you can also see an image of Leon in the background there. Now on the front here, the chainsaw blade sticks out of the packaging, and it actually cuts in half an image of Leon, and you can see the blood splatter there. And of course this is to represent a death in the actual Resident Evil 4 game itself, where the chainsaw guy kind of kills Leon with the chainsaw. So it's quite a cool looking image, and it looks really nice with the kind of chainsaw's blade coming out with all the blood splatter on the chainsaw itself as well as on the image. It kind of matches really nicely. Now on the back of the packaging here, you've also got a description. So it just says, limited edition chainsaw controller for the PlayStation 2, uniquely designed with a gorgeous display stand. Original blood splatter architecture is based on an actual in-game chainsaw from Resident Evil 4. Pull cord mimics the sound of an actual chainsaw. Ergonomic design, comfortable grip, and realistic rumble features enhance gaming experience. And of course the other blurbs here just go into different languages. On the side, it just says in-motion technology. Allows you to make Leon raise and lower his weapon in Resident Evil 4 simply by raising and lowering the controller itself. And again, it has different languages there. Now on the bottom of this, it does have another sticker here, and that just goes into the copyright, shows the NubyTech logo, etc. And of course this display stand also has these rubberized feet, so that when it sits on like a shelf or something, it's sort of slightly raised and it gives it a little bit more resistance. Now, the display stand looks awesome, so you can easily put this on your shelf just like this. But to actually play the chainsaw and start using it, you need to get into this display stand. So there's several things you can do. There's actually a few compartments. So let's have a look at this back compartment. Now it looks just like part of the stand, but there's actually a little slide compartment just here. So just this little piece here actually slides off to reveal a little compartment. So you just slide this piece off like that. And inside here, you've got the manual and also the warranty information. And of course, to put that back on is really easy. You just got to align it up properly. So once you've got it aligned, it just slides back into place. The other compartment is a drawer. So in the front here is a little drawer here, and this just opens up. Closes really easy as well. But in this drawer is actually the cable for the controller. So you can see the cable there. There's also a set of instructions on how to actually open this display stand. And of course, when you're done, you can just close this up. And that way, when you want to use the controller, you can take the cable out. But if you just want to make this as a display piece, you can of course leave the cable packed away. Of course, the one thing about this drawer is that it's very small. So once you've done this, you have to make sure that you actually coil the cable up as closely as possible to what it originally was. Otherwise, it's just not going to fit into this drawer. It's quite tight to begin with, so that's something to keep in mind when you're packing this away. But yeah, you just lift this plastic piece here to access the cable. Now, to actually access the chainsaw itself, you need to open this display stand. To do that, the easiest way to do it is to unclip this front part first. So you just put it sideways and you kind of just pull the front here, and like that, it'll start to come up. So you can pull this off completely, and that's the top of the display stand. You can see inside there's a nice image there of Leon with his gun ready to fire. Looks pretty cool. And of course you can tell that this is plastic just by looking at that. So this is the actual chainsaw controller on the stand. And as you can see, without that top of the display case, it looks pretty posh. You can see the controller in its kind of full glory there, looking very, very cool on the stand. Now the stand itself here has this kind of felt red lined bottom. Looks really nice. It's very soft to the touch. And there's also a metal plaque here that says Resident Evil 4, and it reflects nicely in the light. And this is actually a metal plaque, so it's really nicely done. And of course you can see the chainsaw controller just there. Now to pull this chainsaw controller out of the stand, you actually need to undo a little cable tie here. So once you undo this tie, like that, you then can pull the chainsaw off the stand. So it just pulls off here. There is some foam between this spot here, just to protect the actual blade of the chainsaw there, and it also keeps it nice and tight in the case. So I'd recommend that if you are putting this on a shelf and putting this away, just to tie this up, so if you tip the packaging or hold it upside down, you're not going to lose the chainsaw as well. If you clip the case shut properly, you shouldn't, but it's just a nice thing to have this nice and set in place. And of course there's a little groove here at the bottom, so once you pull the chainsaw out, you can see that's the groove that the chainsaw sits on, and it also rests on this part, and the blade sits in there. So it's quite a nice looking stand. They've really done a nice job with this. Looks really posh. And of course, once you pull it out, you have the chainsaw. And then it's really simple to pop it back in. You just align that back bit, align the blade up between that foam, and then you just have to move it slightly to align it, and then it's back in its display stand. And like I said, just do that up, and then it's solid in there, and then you can easily put this on your shelf and display it. So once you pulled out everything from the box, this is what you get. You of course get the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller itself. You get the cable that connects the controller to your PS2, and this cable just has a PS2 connector on both ends, and it just plugs into the bottom of the chainsaw and then into your PS2 console. You also get a NubyTech warranty card, so just a very simplistic warranty card there. You also get instructions how to open the display case, and this just goes through a brief description there of how you actually open the display case, and also how you open that back compartment. Now moving on to the manual here. So the manual looks quite nice. It's got this cool image of Leon, and of course it says Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller for PlayStation 2. But it's quite a nice looking effect. It kind of looks worn. Looks really cool. When you open it up, you can see straight away that they've made the paper look like really old-fashioned and kind of old and worn. Up here it just says instruction manual. The first page here just kind of shows some features. It says here, completely redesigned with blood spatter aqua that is unique to each chainsaw. And here it says, pull cord unleashes blood-curdling chainsaw roar. Rumble feature for a realistic chainsaw feel. Detachable cable that can be stored in the stand. And it's got a diagram there of the chainsaw. On this side, it goes over the N-motion technology, and it just says, new integrated N-motion technology that allows players to make Leon raise and lower his weapon in Resident Evil 4 simply by raising and lowering the controller itself. And it also shows here how you turn that feature on and off. On the other side here, it's got another image there of Leon, and there's a little bit of description here. And it says, thank you for purchasing the limited edition Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller for use with the Sony PlayStation Entertainment System. NubyTech is proud to bring you this uniquely designed product that we sure will bring you endless hours of enjoyment. Conjured up by a team of dedicated hardcore video game fanatics, this controller was designed to improve gameplay in tight situations, as well as enhance the overall movability that can sometimes be hindered when you are bombarded by endless slew of monsters. With a true hardcore Resident Evil fan and collector in mind, each limited edition chainsaw is one-of-a-kind masterpiece, complete with a unique blood splattered, designed exclusively to each chainsaw, made and serialized production number. You are holding in your hands a piece of gaming history that will never be duplicated. So that's a little description there. And the other pages sort of just go different languages. There is a little thing here that says, after you have finished ridding the world of horrid creatures and monsters, you can display your chainsaw controller in all its glory on masterly designed display stand. Truly a monument of well-crafted perfection. So what are you waiting for? Grab the chainsaw and dive into the action. There are monsters to be dealt with. And there's some images here. And of course this goes into the other languages, but there are some really cool images. Another nice image there of Leon. And there's Leon with that kind of chainsaw death I mentioned earlier. And that's the end. And of course it advertises the game here as well for PlayStation 2. You can see coming fall 2005, so kind of it dates this controller a bit. And that's the back of the manual. So it's a really nice looking manual, and it's got some really cool artwork in it. So now let's take a look at this awesome chainsaw controller. As you can see, it looks pretty incredible. So that's the side of it there. And you can see the blood splatter on the side there. The top of it. The back of it. Other side. And the bottom. Now these are a numbered collectible. So on the front here, you've got this metallic plaque that gives you a number. So this one is 29,344 of 50,000. So you can see there's a lot of these chainsaws in the world, but everyone is numbered. And the reason they did this is because the blood splatter pattern that they put on these chainsaws is unique to every chainsaw. So if you bought 2 of these chainsaws, the blood splatter will be slightly different on both of them. And you can see the details they've truly added. So on the blade here, there's blood going all around the outside of the blade, and there's nice blood splatter in the center there. Same on the other side. Looks really cool. Really cool effect. And the blade itself is quite nice detailed. You can see there. Really nice looking. And going into the body here, you start to see little blood splatters here and there, and scratches. Even on the handle here, there's like a blood stain on the rubberized handle. More blood splatter going on here. A bloody fingerprint at the top here. More blood splatter on the top of the controller. More scratches and stuff like that. And this is all kind of added to make it look like it's worn, and it's got just blood splattered all over this thing. Going into the handle here, you can see how it looks like it's all kind of scratched up, but it looks like someone with a bloody hand has held this controller. You can see the thumb exactly matches where that fingerprint is. Same on this side. Some really nice details in this. And the blood spatter even goes over some of these middle section here, including this button here. Same on this pull cord here. Going around to the other side. Some more blood, some more wear. Some really nice details on this thing. Now the blood splatter is mostly on the blade and the body here. On the bottom it's pretty much plain, but it does still show some wear just around the edges here. So they've really taken their time and made this a really nice attention to detail. And the blood just looks really cool. It just really sells us as a Resident Evil 4 chainsaw. It really looks nice. They've done a really good job. So of course, going into the features of this controller. So at the top here, you've got the Resident Evil 4 logo there. It's kind of a raised logo. It's pretty nice. You've got a D-pad here. D-pad's quite soft, but it's quite easy to use. Then you've got your select button and start button. In the center here, you've got the Capcom logo, and of course it's got a bit of blood splatter on it. You've got this kind of translucent button here, which is the mode button. And when you press this, this will light up red when it's plugged in to your PlayStation 2 system. And that's also got a bit of blood around it as well. Looks really cool. Down here, you've got your 2 analog sticks. These feel quite nice, and they also click down. Then you've got your face buttons here, so you've got X, square, triangle, and circle. These feel quite nice to press. Now on the side here, you've got a little pull cord here, and it says start on it. Now this actually acts as your start button, so you can use this, or you can use the start button up here. And essentially this is a pull cord. You pull it, just like you'd do a chainsaw, right? And in the game, when you pull this, it will trigger the start menu, but it'll also make the chainsaw sound like a chainsaw, and it'll also have a bit of vibration to it. So I'll just quickly play a clip here so you can see this pull cord in action. So as you can see from that clip, the sound effect is actually quite cool and it's very authentic sounding. It sounds like a chainsaw. It does sort of drag on a little bit, so I don't think you'll be using it all the time, but it is purely optional. You can access the start menu by either pulling this pull cord or by pressing the button. So it's realistically up to you of which one you want to use. But it's still a cool feature nonetheless. I kind of wish they had made it a bit shorter, because the fact that it goes on for so long probably means you're less likely to pull this to trigger the start menu, since it's easy just to press the button. And of course, pressing the start button will just access your inventory and map and all those type of menus. But it's still a cool feature. I really like it, and I think they've implemented it quite well. And it feels really nice to pull this cord. It feels like a proper pull cord. So it's quite a cool little feature. Now moving on into the L1, L2, R1 and R2 buttons. So these are basically around the handles here. So your L1 is just here. L2 is on the body. R1 is here. And R2 is here. Now the triggers are easy to press. You just kind of pull them while you're holding the handles there. They are quite narrow, so you will feel them after a while of play on your fingers. But they still are nice and easy to press, and they trigger quite nicely. The buttons on the body here are actually quite soft. And the reason they're soft is because they need to be easy to press, because when you're holding the handles like this, you use this finger to press the R2, and this one to press the L2. So the buttons need to be soft, so they're easy to trigger, so you don't have to put too much force into it. And these work quite well. It feels a bit unnatural at first because obviously you're used to a normal gamepad, but it is absolutely workable and you can definitely trigger them like this. Now the handles are quite comfortable to hold. They're not exactly ergonomic like the manual said. This one's a bit more thinner and rounder with the rubberized grip, while this one here is sort of a bit more of a more sharper, squarer shape to it. You can easily hold them. They fit your hands quite nicely. They do feel a bit different, and after a while you may find them get a little bit uncomfortable, especially on this side because of that kind of square shape. It sort of digs into your hand a little bit, but it's not too bad overall though. And of course you can reach everything here. You can reach the analog sticks, reach the buttons, use a D-pad with your thumb here. And of course you can lift up and press a start or use that pull cord if you need to. So everything is easy to reach. I wouldn't say this is ergonomic, but considering this is a chainsaw shaped gamepad, it's pretty cool and it's actually quite comfortable. On the bottom here is where you plug your cable in. So this little port here is where you plug the cable in. You grab your cable, you plug it in like that, so it'll hang out the bottom of the controller. And of course then you can plug it into your PlayStation 2 console. And when you don't want to use this, you can unplug this cable so you can put it on that display stand. And there's another button here, and this button is the on and off switch. Now this is to control the motion control of this chainsaw. So if you can hear this mechanism, that is the N motion mechanism that detects in what orientation the chainsaw is operating in. So if it's up or down, or if it's straight. So if you don't want to use the motion controls, you can actually turn them off and on at the bottom here just by flicking the switch. So if it's completely optional if you want to use them. And I'll go more into how those motion controls work just now. But first, overall, I think this gamepad is quite cool. I mean, it's a chainsaw shaped gamepad. How unique is that? It's quite comfortable as well. Like, it's not ergonomic, and I don't know why they say it's ergonomic. It's not necessarily ergonomic, but it's still cool nonetheless. I mean, just look at this thing. I mean, it's so unique, and playing Resident Evil with this gamepad is pretty awesome because it just feels so Resident Evil. I mean, just looking at this thing with its blood splatter, it just kind of screams Resident Evil out. It's really cool. So how do you actually play with this controller? Well, like I mentioned before, this is basically a gamepad in the shape of a chainsaw. So you play it exactly like you would do a gamepad. So you hold it like you would do a gamepad using the triggers, analog sticks. In particular, when you're playing at Resident Evil, you would use the left stick here to move around. This is the camera controls. And of course, when you're in the firing, which if you're pressing a button, it's this, or you're using the motion controls and you're firing, then of course you use this to aim and X to shoot. Use square or circle to reload, and of course you use triangle for the map button. And if you're not in aiming mode, then of course you can use square or circle to run. So you'd be holding the stick and running at the same time. And of course you can use the knife by L1 here. You trigger the knife controls, and later in the game you use these other R2 and L2 for other commands. You also use X for like an action key, and of course you use the start button to access your inventory and menus like the maps, etc. So it basically works just like you'd use a gamepad. And like I mentioned before, it's quite comfortable, it's easy to use. You will get used to it after some time. Like I say, it's not going to be as comfortable as a gamepad, but it is still quite easy to play the whole Resident Evil game if you want to. And of course, you can have those motion controls as well. So let's get into the motion controls. So just how are the motion controls with this controller? Well, they work, and they work quite well. The problem is they're not very comfortable to use. Let me explain. So when you're playing Resident Evil 4 with this controller and you have the motion controls turned on, if your chainsaw is straight like this, then of course Leon will have his gun out, ready to fire. You can start shooting the bad guys, etc. If you raise the chainsaw like that, then Leon will raise his gun, so you can start to walk around. Same thing if you have it pointing downwards, so if you have it even, he'll aim, but if you point it down, he'll raise his weapon. So when you're playing the game, you can either have it up or you can point it down to basically start moving around, and then when you want to aim, you have it center like this. The problem with that is it's not very comfortable. So if you have it up like this, you'll start to feel it in your wrist just here. It gets a bit uncomfortable, and of course you're still like using it as a gamepad, reaching all the controls. And if you slightly start to get tired and your hands dip slightly, it'll trigger on to start aiming again, which will stop you in your tracks. So if you're trying to get away from something trying to kill you, then you might get killed anyway because you've accidentally started aiming when you were trying to run away. So that's one down point, going upways. Now if you're going down, you've got the same issue, but it's a different type of issue because your wrists are now pointing down and it's not very comfortable. You can sort of lean your arms against your legs a bit to make it serviceable, but then as soon as you stretch to reach something, say like square or triangle, then your instinct is to try and move the controller up. But when you do that, it goes level, and of course you have the same problem where Leon starts to aim again. So while the motion controls definitely work, and they are a cool function, they're not necessary. To play the game, you don't really need the motion controls, and they'll probably get you killed more times than not. So they're there, they work, but they're just uncomfortable. And so you've got to kind of figure out a way how you can actually hold this controller to be more comfortable while you're playing. And the easiest way is just to turn those motion controls off and just use it as a gamepad. Of course, if you want to fight your way through it, I find personally the easiest way is to point it up. Because at least up you're a bit more comfortable. You can sort of rest your elbows against your knees or a desk or wherever you're playing, right? And you can have it up, which is a little bit more comfortable. You will still accidentally push it down even the slightest bit and trigger that, but at least it won't be as much as going down, which I find extremely uncomfortable. This position is very uncomfortable, and as soon as you want to stretch, you feel it all up your wrist here. So I don't know why they did such a weird sort of angle like that, but yeah, it's not the most comfortable thing to use if you're going to do that. So if you are going to use the motion controls, I would say use it in upwards position, but it's sort of a personal preference, really whatever's comfortable, but I find this position so much more comfortable than the downward position. And of course, because it's got a cable coming out the bottom here, you can't really rest it against the table or anything. So sort of playing where you've got a bit of space, like if you're going to go the downward angle, you sort of want some space where you can put it between your legs or something like that. When it goes down, you can't really rest this on a table because the cable really sticks out. So if you're using it as a gamepad, you still got to hold it in midair, which again, you'll feel the weight eventually, because this is a much heavier controller than a standard gamepad. So whether you're using the motion controls or you're just holding it, you will feel some tired factor with this controller, just because it's got a bit of weight on it. And if you're using the motion controls, that'll probably double in terms of tiredness. So just something to be aware of. They are cool, but I think they could have maybe been implemented a bit more comfortably. So maybe the trigger mechanism is not such a far extension, because it only needs a slight movement to do it. But again, that slight movement just doesn't, your wrists don't like to move in that position. So I don't know, they should have maybe changed that motion a little bit. But overall, it still works well, and they have implemented a good technology here, since it does work. Like, it triggers every single time when you move it up and down. So in that regard, they have got it working. So now that I've gone through all the features, how it works in the game, and of course the motion controls, the easiest way for me to show you how this actually works in Resident Evil 4 is by showing you some gameplay. So let's go have a look at Resident Evil 4 played with the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller.
¡Un forastero! ¡Os voy a romper a pedazos! ¡Por allí! ¡No dejes que se escape! ¡Agárralo! Vayan por detrás. Who are these people? ¡Bloqueale el paso! What are they planning? Chainsaw. Shit. ¡Te voy a matar! Son of a... La campana. Es hora de rezar. Tenemos que irnos. Lord Sattler.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
So overall, the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller is pretty awesome. Just look at this thing. This thing looks like a Resident Evil. It just screams Resident Evil. So if you're a fan of Resident Evil, you should absolutely have this in your collection. It's a piece of history, it's a novelty controller, it's unique in every way, and it's a really cool display piece. So even if you didn't want to use this to play Resident Evil, you can absolutely put this on your shelf and it looks absolutely awesome, especially in this really nice and posh stand. They've really done a good job at making this a collectible. So not only is it a controller, it is a collector's item, and it is pretty awesome. Like, using it in Resident Evil is pretty cool in its own right, but just having this on your shelf, it just is something really unique to display. And of course, if you want to play Resident Evil 4 with this controller, it is really easy to do so, since this is basically a gamepad in the shape of a chainsaw. But the motion controls, like most motion controls, you know, they're not perfect. Personally, I prefer just to use it as a gamepad and turn the motion controls off. But of course, if you enjoy the motion controls or want to add that extra kind of functionality to it while you play, you can absolutely turn it on. And it's definitely something that works. It works quite well. Sometimes, depending on how you tilt the controller, it may trigger accidentally and it's not what you want. So suddenly you aim when you're trying to run away. So sometimes it can get you killed in the game. But, you know, if you're cautious and you kind of have big sweeping movements, you can get away from that quite easily. The thing is, it will tire you out. So I find using the motion controls, whether you move it up or move it down, it's quite tiring. Your wrists, like just here when you're actually tilting the controller, you'll find your wrists will start to get tired after a while. So while the motion controls are cool, they are tiring and they really aren't necessary. You don't have to use them. And you can perfectly use the gamepad on its own without even using the motion controls if you want. But even putting those motion controls aside, it's quite a cool controller. I really enjoy having it. And like I say, it's such a cool display piece. So definitely, if you're a Resident Evil fan or collector, you should have this in your collection. Have this displayed on your shelf. It just is an awesome piece of gaming history. So yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then press that like button as it helps out a lot. Feel free to subscribe as I've heaps more gaming controls and accessories out very shortly. While you're there, hit that notification button and share this video with your friends. And if you want to support my channel, then go ahead and click the join button down below and become a channel member. You'll get monthly perks, and of course the extra support really helps me out a lot. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.